Blazing Saddles is outrageous, off-color, and irrepressible. And even 50 years later, there's still one scene that very few ever realized. A blooper so outrageous, so strange, that it almost didn't seem possible to be on camera. From fart gags and Yiddish cowboy cowpokes to clandestine casting bloopers and cut scenes too egregious to ever broadcast, the reality of this movie is much more anarchic than most suspect. What was it that Mel Brooks didn't tell us? Why did one line get cut back before people could hear it? And how did a total stranger end up in the last frame of the movie? Let's discover. Section 1. Setting the stage. Setting the stage. Why Blazing Saddles still matters. When Blazing Saddles opened in cinemas in 1974, audiences weren't sure whether to laugh or leave. It deconstructed the cowboy myth, ridiculed racism to its face, and culminated with a studio-wide brawl that utterly shattered the fourth wall. It was crude, offensive, and boisterous, and yet it worked. But how did it happen in the first place? How did it manage to get past the censors? And what is the giant blooper in Blazing Saddles that nobody has ever caught until now? To comprehend the chaos and genius of Blazing Saddles, one must know where America was in 1974. The Vietnam War had recently ended in embarrassment. Watergate had blown up. Nixon was about to resign. Public confidence in government had imploded. While the civil rights movement had won legal victories, racism was nevertheless entrenched in American culture, particularly in Hollywood. Hollywood westerns continued to make white men heroes and reduce everyone else to also-rans. Mel Brooks wasn't content to simply send up westerns. He wanted to annihilate them. Blazing Saddles is set in the Old West, but it's really about America in the 1970s. The premise of the movie rings with simplicity. A ruthless real estate developer, trying to drive settlers out of a small town named Rock Ridge, persuades the governor to appoint a black sheriff and hopes that the frightened townsfolk will flee the town. But the new sheriff, Bart, proves to be brighter, quicker, and more able than anybody could have predicted. What starts out as a racist gag turns into a zany, genre-defying revolt, with Bart leading the attack against the villains and against the close-minded townsfolk who attempted to destroy him. On the surface, it appears to be slapstick, but beneath the sound effects and goofy comedy is a dangerous message. That racism, when shown light and laughter, topples. That's why Blazing Saddles was both influential and incendiary. Audiences weren't accustomed to the N-word being heard in a comedy, even when directed at bigotry itself. They weren't accustomed to profane toilet humor in films. And they certainly weren't accustomed to a black hero outwitting every white man in the vicinity. Brooks pushed every limit he could, and probably several he didn't intend to. While Mel Brooks made the film, he wasn't by himself. One of his co-writers was Richard Pryor, the most fearless black comedian of the time. Pryor knew how to craft jokes that bit deep. He helped shape Bart into a character who wasn't just charming and intelligent, but completely aware of how absurd his situation was. Pryor was originally supposed to play Bart himself, but the studio refused to insure him because of his history with drugs. That choice could have changed the whole tenor of the film. Cleveland Little added a smooth Broadway finish and deadpan sensibility, and Pryor added heat and raw truth to the script. The movie aimed at everyone: racists, politicians, cowboys, actors, and old stud studio moguls. Nobody was left alone. It destroyed the notion that satire could be nice. Blazing Saddles wasn't interested in politeness. It wished to slap you across the face, then laugh at the stupidity of that slap afterward. It took lowbrow jokes and added intellectual commentary, not even worrying about who it would offend, as long as everyone got the point. The outcome: a film that could never today be remade the same way. Even its conclusion had a message. Rather than remain locked within its Wild West universe, Blazing Saddles literally shatters the walls of the Warner Brothers lot, careening into other movie sets, city streets, and ultimately a theater playing the same film. It's absurd, it's silly, and it's genius. The actors blinkingly discover that they are in a movie. The satire consumes itself totally, and Brooks top it off with unadulterated madness. It's one of the first self-conscious finales in American comedies, leading the way for subsequent movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Deadpool. But even amidst all that mayhem, something flew under the radar. Something tiny, 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 a tiny little moment that took decades before anybody noticed it. And once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. Section 2. The Dirty Joke. The most outrageous scene in Blazing Saddles never made it in the final cut. It's not a blooper, not a prank, and not a behind-the-scenes disaster. It's a deleted scene, so shocking, so raw, and so indelible, that even Mel Brooks, the guy who proudly plays fart jokes on the big screen, decided not to include it. Here's the real twist. Most people didn't even realize the scene existed until recently. It was hidden in plain sight, buried in old interviews and recollections, occasionally mentioned but never shown. Now that it's resurfaced, it changes everything fans thought they knew about the movie. So what had happened in that scene, anyway? Why was it cut? And why does it matter so much? In the completed version of Blazing Saddles, the bedroom scene between the sexy Lily Vannup, played by Meline Kahn, and Sheriff Bart, played by Cleon Little, is full of flirt and suggestiveness, but tame compared to what was initially shot. In the initial deleted version, Lily and Bart enjoy a cozy dinner for two in her dressing room, candlelight aglow, with the playful term schneiten, a not at all subtle euphemism. As lights fade and stage goes dark, Lily's heavy German accent cuts through the darkness. "Oh, do they say it about you people? How well you are constructed? Is it so?" After a suspenseful pause, the punchline lands, "I hate to disillusion you, ma'am, but you're sucking on my arm." In that single instant, the movie would have taken a bold leap, addressing an old stereotype about black men's anatomy, turning it into humor, and then deflating it with a perfectly straight-faced response. That single joke would have mixed race, body, satire, and suggestion together into something perhaps more explosive than anything else in the whole film. But it never made the final cut. Even for Blazing Saddles, there were limits. Mel Brooks has spoken about the deleted scene in interviews, such as one with Conan O'Brien, describing how it went over the line, past satire, and into a place that could have overshadowed the bigger message of the film. Treading the delicate ground between comedy and social commentary, he decided not to take the risk, opting instead to cut it. But there was another cut, another missing bit of dialogue, remembered from production records and crew recollections, had Lily Von Stupp once again employing her wiles to tempt Bart. At face value, she orders him to take off his ammunition belt, but the line is unmistakably suggestive of something more, a naughty double entendre, both teasing and provocative. It's a throwaway line, yet packed with innuendo. There was a third scene, never shot but written, and it was even more incendiary. In many early drafts, Lily's seduction of Bart extended further, with her not just questioning the myth of black men having large genitals, but actively trying to verify it herself. This one crossed over into physical ground that would remain contentious today. The comedy, though, was in Bart's cool, detached, unimpressed response, serene and blasé even when confronted by her overtures. What makes it even more fascinating is that Brooks subsequently confessed regretting the excision of certain of these scenes. In interviews, he's claimed that he may have censored himself too much, desiring the film to be risky, but holding back from letting it go completely. He was afraid people wouldn't get the satire or might misread the intention. Once, he even admitted, "Perhaps I was afraid." So, the question is, what would Blazing Saddles have been like if those scenes remained? Would it have remained a timelessly great film, or would it have been banned, buried, or lost to memory? It's impossible to say for certain, but it does tell us something. These weren't scenes included simply for their shock value. They were part of Brooks's larger imperative to explode the slick illusions of Hollywood storytelling. He did not merely want audiences to laugh. He wanted them to squirm, to perceive racism not merely as a social evil, but as a silly, vulnerable belief system driven by fear, ignorance, and power. That is what made Blazing Saddles not merely a comedy. It became a landmark of satirical film. It used humor as a scalpel, cutting deeply, laying bare nerves, and challenging the audience to respond. The scenes that remained are iconic for their brazenness, but the ones that were cut let us know how far Brooks was willing to push it. They remind us that often the most compelling aspect of film history isn't what ended up on the screen. It's what nearly did. Section 3. Chaos, Farts, and Accidental Genius. One of the movie's most memorable scenes is the campfire episode, in which cowboys dine on beans and freely pass gas, the first of its kind in Hollywood cinema. No big film had ever included a full-blown flatulence gag with sound prior to 1974, but Mel Brooks not only sanctioned it, he expanded it. Following test screenings, in which audiences laughed so hard they forgot the ending, Brooks returned and added still more fart sounds in post-production. He understood something the studio did not. This was not merely bathroom humor. It was symbolic. For years, Westerns had romanticized the cowboy as stoic, noble heroes, clean, strong, mythic. Brooks destroyed that illusion, presenting them as real, sweaty, rough men, gassy, dirty, human. It destroyed the immaculate image Hollywood had created, and audiences loved it. Warner Brothers, though, declared it crude, tasteless, unnecessary. Brooks shut them up and left it in, changing comedy forever about what it could get away with. That chaos hug persisted to the climactic fight of the movie, which burst from the mock town of Rock Ridge onto the real Warner Brothers backlit. The conclusion is a frenetic meta-meltdown. Actors burst through mock saloons, crash a musical number, and crash on a genuine Hollywood streets outside cinema. In the midst of this pandemonium, something completely offhand happened. A passing man wearing a sweater strolled peacefully through the center of the frame. He was not an extra, not in character, and was otherwise unconnected with the production, merely a bystander swept up in the commotion. Rather than edit him out, Brooks instructed, "Leave him in. It's funny." And it was. His offhand confusion added another level of ridiculous humor. That impromptu blooper remained an all-time movie accident. These unscripted moments defined Brooks's filmmaking style. He encouraged his cast to improvise, break character, and experiment with timing. Some of the most memorable lines in Blazing Saddles weren't in the script at all. Gene Wilder's laid-back delivery as the Waco Kid, Clean Little's sly sarcasm and deadpan wit, and Meline Kahn's playful improvisation, including her off-key rendition of I'm Tired, all came from on-set freedom. Brooks felt real comedy derived from improvisation rather than perfection, that a good error could be more powerful than the best scripted line. No place is that more apparent than when introducing the Yiddish-speaking Native Americans, as young Bart and his family are surrounded by horseback warriors, seemingly about to meet their demise, until